today's podcast. Hey guys, what's up? It's Ryan Alford. Welcome to the latest edition of the Radcast. Here we are in the holiday season. We've got our toasty fireplace actually brewing here on the TV screen. It's making me feel warm. And I'm also feeling warm with our latest guest here, Jann Parish. Great to have you, Jann.
So good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so hey, I like that cozy background there in the home, like most people. I think all of our most of our guests these days have been at home and abound. We're fortunate enough to have a spread out office, so we keep things warm in the studio and light. But Jann is the founder and CMO, president extraordinaire of Girls Like You, GLU, Glue for short. So did I title everything right, Jann? I mean, you're a woman of many capabilities and things which we'll get into, but you're wearing a lot of hats there at Glue.
I sure am. It's the startup mentality, right? A little bit of everything. So.
Exactly. Startup life, which you've had some experiences here recently, including your own. So I know we'll get into that. But so Jann, first and foremost, I guess we're staying safe and sound this holiday season. Anything crazy on your end? Or are we trying to keep things as normal as possible?
Exactly that. As normal as possible. It's a beautiful snowy day here today in Ohio. So it's all nice and snuggly inside the house. And we're going to, hopefully it'll stay like this throughout the next couple of weeks. I get to the holiday season and get to spend some time together. It makes it so much easier to be indoors when it's so beautiful and wintry outside.
I am jealous of the snow. We're still dreaming here. Like last night, I don't know what it was here in upstate South Carolina. We had like 3 inches of rain. It was 36 degrees. So we're like this close to having some precipitation, frozen type of precipitation, but it was just rainy and yucky. So we're hoping, all of my kids, I have 4 boys under the age of 11, and they're all praying for a white Christmas. I'm like, I wouldn't count on it.
No, I grew up in Texas, and Texas was the same thing. Every year I wanted that one white Christmas, and one year, like just randomly, it got to 32 degrees and it snowed for about 15 minutes, and it was the best day ever, best Christmas ever. It didn't stick. It was coming out.
The one Christmas I can remember here in South Carolina, it was like gone by 2 p.m. like the morning, so like a dusting, but we don't get so fortunate. But we do get wonderful weather in South Carolina, so no complaints. But Jann, let's tell everybody, let's start down the path here and give everyone the background. I know you've been in fashion design and all those things, being the CMO at several large companies and VP of marketing. Really heavy and impressive marketing background, but let's just kind of give everybody that background on Jann.
Yeah, sure. So I would say from the time I was 8, I knew that I wanted to work in fashion and marketing in some capacity. Marketing, probably less so. If you asked my 8-year-old self, you probably would have heard I want to work in, be the editor of Vogue magazine. What I knew was that I wanted to be creative, and I wanted to find ways to be creative and to express myself, and most importantly through clothes. It was just something I felt really strongly about. Over the years, I started first in Texas, and I graduated from TCU, and actually ended up going into technology because that's what you did in 2000. It was the tech boom, and that's where you started. So I worked for Texas Instruments, working on DSPs, and if there's one thing that didn't look like another, it was Jann Parish and digital signal processors. So I was there for a couple of years and moved to New York City, and by sheer just wit and verve and tenacity, found my way into the fashion space. I started with magazines. I was with a title called DNR, and it was a men's publication that was tied to Women's Wear Daily. And then I just kind of worked my way up. I left from there to go into the beginning of my marketing career working with a company called Kellwood, who did a bunch of kind of early aughts brands like Baby Phat and My Michelle and XOXO. And then grew into beauty and was at L'Oreal for a while. After L'Oreal, I went to Calvin Klein, and that really began, I would say, close to a 15-year stint between Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger. I worked for Calvin for a couple of years, was then recruited to Tommy Hilfiger. Then the parent company, who owned both of them, acquired Calvin Klein. Acquired Tommy Hilfiger and other parts of Calvin Klein. So the bulk of my work has been with those guys, and it's really been about rebranding and creating really moments of inspiration for the consumer and tying it as closely as I can to end execution and monetization of that experience. So if in 2008, it was, magazine spreads and beautiful content and that sort of thing. And as time marched on, what I loved was the science that began to show up in the marketing space. And it was taking the beauty that came from the fashion imagery and turning it into content they could share with the consumer and they could engage with. One of the big feathers in my cap was it was several years ago with the hashtag My Calvin's campaign, which was one of the first fully monetized kind of social media campaigns in the industry featuring Justin Bieber. And then I found my way to Victoria's Secret. And for a few minutes after that, found my way into the cannabis space. And through all of that, I've had this really strong desire to start my own company. I've had a lot of experiences with a lot of big places, and now I sit here in a little studio above my garage, which is, Glue headquarters, creating this kind of next big dream.
That's awesome. A lot to unpack there. We have more in common than I realized. I did 6 years in Manhattan, but on the agency side, working
Oh,
with Hill Holiday and now what's EP and Co here in Greenville. They're Boston agency as Hill Holiday is, and then I opened their New York office. Actually, EP, who's owned by Hill Holiday and IPG, the larger holding company, and so worked on Verizon, iPhone, Apple, Samsung, large brands, and have too watched that transformation from print and traditional mediums into what's now the digital world, the art and the science of marketing. So I love that, and I love the perspective. We work with a lot of boutique type fashion brands, and we really love the visual content of it. But the only thing that's kind of been maddening, and I was curious your take on it, is as much as I love the science, and we're a digital agency, but it's been a little, all the talk of performance marketing and everything like that, I hate how the brand and some of the visual aspects of branding has gotten pushed down a little bit. I don't know your perspective on that, working and kind of coming like me, wearing both sides of the fence in a marketing world, how you feel about that.
yeah, it's a funny thing. I completely agree with that. I would say there was a point in time where we worked really hard to make sure every image that found its way into any channel kind of beyond traditional print was as beautiful as print, and then realized that was untenable. And there was this crazy aspect of like, okay, what do we let go of in that process, and what do we create from it? And what I have found to be really remarkable through all of that, particularly when you think about content creation, is really what's been put into the hands of the customer and the end consumer and what they can do. And while not nearly as polished, sometimes a lot more interesting. And it's been really cool to kind of see how creativity comes to pass in these times. What I find to be kind of a drag is when you put all those algorithms behind it, what actually gets to the forefront of the consumer's attention. And sometimes the really good stuff doesn't make it. It doesn't fit whatever crazy thing is happening inside that science part. And that can be totally maddening too. So yeah, it's an interesting mix. What comes to life is can be really beautiful and really unique. And then you wait for it to really hit, and sometimes it doesn't. And that can be just totally bonkers.
Yeah, it does, because sometimes we now producing some of the best videos, and when I say best, I mean sometimes it's not even production value, but the what you feel like is quality concept and strategy and consumer insight, and then it gets beat out by whatever the borrowed interest of the day is from TikTok or otherwise, which can be maddening, like you said, with the algorithm. But what's been like the biggest, before we transition into everything that's happening with girls like you,
Mm-hmm.
what's, you talked about it and kind of that love of the consumer. I hear that, I read that in some of the other pieces you've talked about,
Mm-hmm.
which really hits with me. But is there any any big, like your biggest takeaway or your biggest insight that you feel like you've brought now owning your own business from all those experiences? Is it just kind of leaning into that customer, or is there something else?
Yeah. There's a couple of things that come into play there. I think the first is that idea of leaning into the customer. I think it's really easy, particularly as a founder, to fall in love with your own work and your own experience, right? And, because it's your baby, just as your daughter or your son's in your case. And, I think that through all of these years of training, you develop that ability to be able to separate, I guess it would be just the passion for the work, from what the end consumer is going to want from you. And I think maybe there's a little bit of ego in there that comes with that too, that you have to part with. But it took a good portion of my career to come to that place where you can really make that point of differentiation. And as I've launched Glue, that's exactly right. What we're so early. I mean, we're 2 months into existence in the consumer space. 9 months, from back where I sit, and it's all test and learn. Like, you can't love anything too much. You have to be willing to put a couple of other things out there, see what sticks, change your website around, change the way you're doing emails, and see how the consumer responds.
What inspired? So let's just jump right into Girls Like You and the glue that holds and brought it together. I imagine family and some inspiration, but let's talk about what drove you to start Girls Like You and really maybe just the nuts and bolts of what it is and giving our listeners kind of that background on glue.
Sure. So Glue stands for Girls Like You. And the brand was built around the premise that it takes courage to grow up. Uh, a big piece of growing up naturally is kind of the physical changes that happen as you do. And whether you're a boy or a girl, those are experiences you have. And we chose to focus really on girls and those who identify as such and what that experience looks like. So I have been in, women's focused brands for a long time. And most recently with Victoria's Secret. And it was, I would say, largely born of my time at VS, where I was seeing the consumer was beginning to differ in the way that they chose to express themselves than what we were seeing in advertising and the way we were expressing the brand. And it got me to thinking, I was like, well, so if we're to think about where the world is headed and what this generation of young women and what they're going to expect from us, and with the way they're going to communicate about themselves, it's different. And I didn't want to create something that was going to really be an outward projection of an idea of just mine. My hope is that this is a community kind of focused thing where it becomes product and content and experiences that come from the greater sum and from all the individuals in there. It's why it's not called Girls Like Us or Girl Like Me. It's
Girls Like
called
Me.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really the idea behind it. I'll tell you truthfully, the concept itself came from conversations with my daughter Lila. So my daughter Lila, I'm looking at a picture right here right now of the website, is the dark-headed little girl in the picture. She's not so little anymore. She's 12. She'd die if I told her she were little. But with
Is
that
this
in
a
mind,
TikTok star? All right, I got to know. Is that who we're seeing on TikTok?
you're seeing her, and you're also seeing a woman who actually was my next door neighbor several years ago when we were living in New York, and she was a babysitter for us.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
and so a big part of me and then my focus in business is really making sure I can grab young talent and bring them along for the ride. And that's the case in Evelyn, who's a lot of the most of the girls you're seeing, or the main girl you're seeing in the TikTok videos. She's amazing.
Okay.
So yeah. And
And that is or isn't your daughter?
no, that's
Okay.
Evelyn. That is
All right.
our intern. And Lila is in about half of them. So
Okay.
you see her, they're both dark headed, so it's kind of hard to
All
tell
right.
them. Yeah. So uh, Evelyn and Lila, they bring that aspect, that kind of self-expression moment to the brand. And so where we had gotten started was actually a couple of years ago. My daughter came home from school and she's like, oh, hey, we're going to have, and we all go through this, that the body talk in school in a couple of days.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh yeah, how are you feeling about that? And she's like, I mean, it's kind of weird that my homeroom teacher is going to be the one who's going to give us, this big talk. And I was like, I had never really thought about it like that, because that's just the way we do things, right? Like, it's the
Yep.
same thing that happened to me growing up in Texas all those years ago.
I
Same,
remember it was my homeroom teacher as well. I don't know why, but I remember that.
what a gift to those homeroom teachers who can
I
have
know.
that
They got the short straw.
So, and I think there's just this just mass of different ideas and things that are unexplained, or maybe the young woman has her own kind of view of what that is, but without the experience or having individuals to talk to about it, it's a scary thing. And so we decided that at that moment, like, what we were going to do was create a brand that helped dispel the myths associated with growing up. And it could be everything from dealing with, loneliness in the time of COVID to also to, how to care for your body, how to care for your skin, and the experiences that come along, social dynamics, all of that. None of that is off the table. So when we were looking at how we could work the content with the product, the first place we launched was actually with this idea of an at-home manicure kit. And if you can imagine, it's like March. We're all staying at home. You forget what the outdoors looks like, basically, because we were all a little too afraid to leave. We thought, well, why don't we create something that would give you a point of engagement with your friends? And we created this kit. So all the items associated with giving yourself a manicure come in this kit, a bunch of fun colors. All the beauty that we have designed is all organic. It's natural. It's non-toxic. The nail polish remover is a brand new product that's built. It's made out of soy oils rather than acetone. So create something that was beautiful, useful, and then package it in a way that it can be engaging. So the Girls Like You box, actually, the product that it comes in, the box itself has a place that's been engineered to hold a smartphone. So that gives you a chance to watch the videos that we produce. You have the Nails or Netflix now on screen, and that's basically gives you a tutorial in there of how to do your nails. And it also gives you a place of engagement and conversation. And you can use that phone stand. In fact, all of our TikTok is shot using that phone stand that comes with the glue kit. Brilliant. And because it makes the perfect extra entity to help you kind of get your point across. And then from a branding standpoint, from where you and I sit, Ryan, it's got our logo on it. It has identification. It's easy to get to our site from the information on the box. And, it's a good place for a young girl and for a young woman to express her creativity. So as we kind of get out of the holiday season where we're really focused on gift giving, we're going to move into talking about what kind of the winter blues look like for this generation, and kind of the effects of technology and the combination of really just kind of the outward projection of everybody's having fun when, life is hard and it's hard for everyone. And what are the stories that we can tell to bring comfort to the audience and to bring them along and, find some humor in it too.
This is a woman after my own heart in many ways. Starting an e-commerce brand with community in mind, with the content to create user-generated content. Like, this is like the rock star plan for how you start an e-commerce business. I'm just going to give you props. I don't pump. If you go listen to our guests, I don't pump up my guests like just naturally. That's just not my style. But we work with enough e-commerce brands that come in the door that want to hire us. They've either grown, they can't start growing anymore, they want to grow more. And I look at them and they have a commoditized product, and they have no community, and they think that doing sales every week is going to sell product. And it starts with community, and you guys have started right square in the middle with that. I think it's brilliant, and I love how you're creating content and really building it around the story of your audience in narratives that mean so much to them, in something that's so underserved, which is whether it's the youth, girls, boys, whoever, and them kind of getting an image for themselves and helping them develop that. So kudos all around for the approach. And now if I've made your head big, it's been intentional, because it really is great. It really is great. I love the community aspect.
Well, thank you very much. We're super excited to get it off the ground and see where it can go. It's been a true labor of love. There's like 24/7, there's no hours, totally away from it, or it doesn't cross my mind or hit a dream or anything. So
are we a subscription based? So, there's a few things that I hear with monetization of this, obviously selling the boxes and the kits, having worked with companies that get involved in doing the boxes, the Birchbox, those kind of things. It feels like a blend of selling product that's branded as well as potentially the kind of box thing. Maybe dive into that a little bit of the monetization aspect of this.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about how we're approaching that. So what the one thing I was most afraid of was I didn't want to create something that was e-commerce focused, that was a one-time purchase. So I was going to spend my life and my daughter, who's very closely involved in this, just trying to acquire new customers because
Yeah.
they weren't going to be able to come back again, right? So part of the methodology to the brand is to tie the storytelling to the product launches that we'll be doing as we go. And then once we're a little further on, we're so early in phase one, is where you'll see the beginnings of the subscription-based business. So our second launch is focused on skincare. There's two kits that we'll be launching, one called All Clear Here and another one called Seeing Spots. And it's beauty, it's skincare products you can basically mix and match to kind of what you need most. And the hope is that through kind of bringing in that information about the consumer, they'll answer a quiz, much like you see a lot of other e-commerce businesses. And then really kind of coming back with all the tools and tech that come along with marketing now, is we can start to create that subscription moment and really develop a sense of loyalty and long-term relationship with our consumer. And that's the content piece. The product can take you so far. There's loyalty associated with that. But if they believe in you and they believe in what you have to say, that's how you're going to keep them.
Will this always be GLU glue branded products that you're selling? Is it always going to be your products, or would it potentially be a conglomeration or I'm blanking on the word, but I think you know what I'm asking.
Yeah. It's like cross promotion or other
Yeah.
partners. It's a great question. So right now we're starting with glue. There's a couple of things that have come my way that are interesting that I'm looking to probably include in the site just for an overall experience. And we'll see just through testing and learning what sticks and what she wants. I would love to bring others along on this experience. I think the content component of what we're trying to accomplish makes a lot of room for that. All in due time. I'm trying to keep the type A under control and this personality and kind of take each step and sequence appropriately.
Yep. It might be the start of the next Glossier, but with a more purposeful mission and function here.
Music to my ears. I sure hope so.
Yes, I know. So talk a little bit more about, that you have a daughter. I'm sure that inspired it. I mean, is there any other like natural inspirations that, and I mean, obviously, like I in my monologue on how great this is, the importance of this with girls and their self-image and those kind of things. But are there other things that have just been natural care points for you that have really, tied you to this? Has it been your daughter as much as anything?
So I would say it's just the aspect of womanhood that's really, really created this moment. And I think that femininity, I think, is a word you could use, but I don't like it as much because I think it has different implications. I came up initially in business in an environment that was, pretty dominated by men. It never bothered me because I just didn't choose to make it a point of differentiation. We're all just going to be great business people.
Right.
As I went along and looked at who was applying for jobs and that sort of thing, what I really wanted to do was be one of the individuals who could bring somebody along and then have them pay it forward, and then that person would pay it forward, and hopefully over time we would have this really neat network of individuals who have a shared experience and are focused on kind of that idea of community, much like I started when we describing when we first started speaking.
Yep.
And I found that to be really effective as I've moved up, and it's meant great relationships and great sounding boards and interesting people to talk to along the way. And that what you can learn from people that you bring into your circle and what you can teach them is they're both important. As I approached this business, it was all of that. It was the spirit of openness and vulnerability. I think for me early in my career, that was a hard thing to do. Not anymore. I'm a grown up now and I'm going to kind of be who I'm going to be. But at that point it was. And I want to make that part be as easy for young women as they grow up as possible. And that's where this idea of like the interaction with the box with your phone, or, girls like you and not girls like me. The identity is open and allows for individuality. And I think what's been super cool as I've talked to, these young people who live in Gen Z, whether boy or girl, is they're down. It's been super exciting to see that. And it's been also really interesting because the product itself, Nail polish, once upon a time, was girl focused, or at
Yep.
least that's the way it was projected. And the amount of these kits, and people I've come along with that have bought them, that it's not about a gender thing, it's about a self-expression thing.
Hmm.
And that's cool too. So it could just as easily be girls and guys like and all in due time.
Yep, I love it. Talk, we're a marketing podcast. We've been talking some marketing, obviously, holistically. What are the marketing avenues, as being a startup, you're 2 months in out to the consumer? What are you guys leaning on from a marketing perspective for telling, obviously building the community, which is going to be, the big play and start to do some lifting for you. But what are the channels and kind of the what's the marketing plan for Glue?
Sure. So, we launched at a relatively auspicious time. So it was 2020, the craziest year, I think, on record.
Go figure. I feel for every startup that,
You know,
for
Perfect
this year.
timing, right? I think what I'm really focused on, and kind of where both Lila and I agree, is that it's the trust building exercise that comes first. And so, right now, nobody knows us from anything else. And so I think the user generated content will come as people become more familiar with the brand and understand what we stand for.
Right.
So our focus has been largely on awareness driving, and we've been focusing heavily on digital marketing, a lot of the back end boring stuff with how we've approached search. And the hope is to begin to syndicate some of the content that we're generating for the website, as far as the articles go that live in the girl care section of our website, and using that as kind of the initial entry point into the business. From there, we'll continue to launch new tutorials and do what we can to keep the site fresh. And as like the Google machine comes to know us and understand us, that will start to kind of pull forward more and more. The next big thing I would say as we get into the spring season and away from kind of the crowded holiday season is going to be how we focus on press.
Yep.
I'm staying top of funnel today. I know conversion is going to take some time, and I think that's okay. Well, it can't take forever because I got to sell something. But really want to get out there and get people talking and kind of grow from that perspective.
Yep. Well, it seems like an easy story for people to get behind on the press realm. That's another reason it's brilliant. It should, just as you start to get some traction, I think, whether it's I mean, I could see it on so many different avenues. I see you on the Today Show. I could see you on, a lot of different of platforms, and telling that it both empowerment feels right, but it's more than that. I'm feeling more than that here. The whole self care and it's more. I don't know, finding yourself, and there's just more to that than just empowerment. I think there's a deeper opportunity here for you guys. And what are we wanting? I hate to say you're 2 months in. I'm used to this question, so it like comes to my head. It's like, where are we headed? Like, where's Jann headed? Like, maybe it's not just glue, but what's the future hold? Where do we want to be? Whether that's with the brand, or you've got tremendous marketing background. Is it like startup or die here? Or where's it all headed?
I've done the big company thing, and I love the big company thing. And there's not this. I would definitely never say it's never going to happen again. But I've had this real desire to lead from a full kind of enterprise. Everything from the production and the finance and all of those things. I've spent all these years building beautiful marketing machines. I'd like to see if I could put together some of the other pieces too. And it's just a personal challenge. As the business continues to grow, my hope is that we can find other supporting kind of categories to add to it. And it doesn't have to be glue. It could be blue, boys like you. It could be many other things. I could take a look at, a different stage in the individual's life and focus. And if I'm, dreaming now, it's like also thinking about what happens at 45 plus, which would be, in some relatively short order, something completely relevant to me. And so, the world, I think, right now is kind of so open. There's so much going on, and I think that there's never been a bigger consumer appetite for businesses that are new. I've seen it even in the way that some of my unintentional habits have been from shopping for this holiday season. Where can I shop smaller? Where can I, expand beyond just kind of traditional retail and and find something cool and interesting and different? And I like that. I'm hoping that I can create and bring other people along to help create these really cool, just kind of different ways and different products that can make our lives better.
I love it. And they've said that the pandemic has grown e-commerce and the type of discovery that you're talking about, like 7 years and 7 months or 9 months or whatever it is, like the
Oh, totally.
trajectory of it. So
Yeah.
if
I am not the only one in my circle who is starting a new business. I like the idea of a passion economy. It's kind of cool.
it is
Yeah.
cool. Well, let's tell everybody where we can follow all things Girls Like You and Jann, keeping up with Jann and everything that's going on with the brand and you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that opportunity. So you can find Glue, Girls Like You, at beautybyglue.com. We have our first wholesale account with a boutique in Soho called Flying Solo that will be in for the next several months. That is at 382 Broadway. You can find us on social at the handle is at Glue Stick Together across all the majors. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And then personally, I am really active on LinkedIn. I encourage anybody who found this conversation interesting to please reach out to me. I'm Jann Parish, 2 N's, 1 R in Parish, 2 N's in Jann. And yeah, that is the world of Glue Girls Like You.
I love it, especially where the pop-up is. That was my apartment condo was Barclay Towers, which is right in Tribeca in downtown, and I saw right down Broadway up to the Empire State Building from on the 52nd floor, and so I can envisioning where 352 is, and so get out and check out the pop-up, and it's outdoors, I'm sure, or in some way, shape, or form, I imagine, or outside or somewhere safe, and so get out and check out the pop-up. I really appreciate Jann Parish coming on today. Jann, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, it's been great, Ryan. Thank you so much for inviting me along.
My
What a
pleasure.
pleasure.
Let's stay in touch and maybe do a follow up here in 6 or 8 months. I want to see where things are going. We really appreciate Jann coming on. Go, as she said, follow along with everything Girls Like You. We can be found at theradcast.com for all future updates and episodes and all of our content. You can follow me at Ryan Alford on Instagram, and we will see you next time on the Radcast.